Welcome back to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at another of the Gord the Rogue novels. This is not the second published, but it's the second in my reading order. Your reading order may vary. There are some sources online that will show you, but I'm going to present these in the order in which I read them when I reread the set, which is not all that infrequent. This is Knight Errant by Gygax. It's a set of short stories that takes place in and around Greyhawk City and helps set the tone for Gord going forward in the book series. There's the back of the book for you. I like these books a bunch. I'm going to warn now, there are going to be some spoilers as we go through this video. So if you're going to read these books and you want to keep them fresh and new, I advise you to turn off the video right now. So spoilers being warned, today on page 121, we're going to take a look at Knight Errant by Gygax. Knight Errant by Gygax. This is the Gord the Rogue short story book, and for me, I'm showing it now because this is the order in which I read the Gord the Rogue stories. I read Book 1, Saga of Old City, then I read Knight Errant, and then I go on to Artifact of Evil, which is actually the second book in the series, because so many of these short stories take place between books 1 and 2. Interestingly, there are some short stories in here you could place just about anywhere in Gord's career once he's an experienced adventurer who's come back to the city of Greyhawk. But at the end of the first book, Gord and Chert, his barbarian friend, come back to Greyhawk or to the city of Greyhawk and are set up in a nice little apartment there and go on adventures. And this is the book that tells us of the adventurers. And I've shown this before on my channel, but there's a special place in my heart for this book because it's the only thing I have that's autographed by anybody who had anything to do with D&D, and this is Gary Gygax from Gen Con 20 in 1987. The one and only time I ever met Gary Gygax, so this is kind of a special book for me for that reason. The short stories in here are a lot of fun. There are going to be spoilers, as I said earlier, so please be aware. If you don't want spoilers, I'm not going to try to give a ton, but there are going to be some spoilers. If you want to avoid them, please leave now. You've been warned. So here we go. In the first short story, The Heart of Darkness, this is kind of cool. It starts out in a tavern, and we meet Iniver Zig, who is this stereotypical wizard, and he takes Gord and Chert with him as his allies to go explore a chunk of Castle Greyhawk. We actually have about 40 pages of story, most of which takes place in Castle Greyhawk. This gave a pretty cool insight into the castle itself, and it was one we hadn't had before, and it's one I've rolled into my campaign. The next three short stories are actually kind of interconnected. They kind of go in sequence. The Weird Occurrence at Odd Alley. Odd Alley is a place in Greyhawk that actually opens to a dimensional portal, and you go into this little pocket material plane where different intrigues can happen and different races from different cosmos can interact with people. They meet with an intelligent ogre who is quite the fop in his dress and mannerisms. It's a lot of fun. I like the Weird Occurrence in Odd Alley. The next one is a Revel in Realm Ward. As they come back from Odd Alley, they have to go on a quest because they've angered the King of Nyrond. So they're sent on a quest in a Revel in Realm Ward. And then that's followed up by another sub-quest they have to go on for the Five Dragon Bowl. So these are pretty good short stories, and they do intertwine very nicely. We come now to the next one, which is Twistbuck's Game, which is a fun little story. Not a real adventure, but it's a Gord and a man named Twistbuck play a game called Legs. And they have to go through Greyhawk and find signage with so many legs, and they have money based on how many legs they find. It's an interesting story. I like it a lot. The next is The House in the Tree. Might be my favorite story in the book. Gord goes to visit a friend who lives near Divers, so we get a nice look at the area between Greyhawk and Divers for some of this. This gentleman's name is Hop, and Hop gets Gord involved in harvesting some possibly magic mushrooms, and some fairy folk take exception to that, and Gord and Hop end up in the house in the tree. Cats versus Rats. and Love versus Loves, Laughs at Locks, and Cat or Pigeon all kind of intertwine a little bit. It gets some of the grittier intrigue in the city of Greyhawk, and some of the things that help Gord kind of mature in his growth as a character. I'm gonna say a few things about this particular book. There's the back. This book was written in '87. There's some stuff in here that might be a little questionable by today's standard, and frankly, some of the stuff was a little questionable by 1987 standards, as far as representation of some of the people and things like that. I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail, but I do like to kind of let folks know that it's a product of when it was written, and a few things pop up here and there you might be a little surprised at. I was, but it is an excellent, fun read. It gives a bunch of information. Another Spellfire card. It gives a bunch of information on the city of Greyhawk itself, and some fun adventures. These adventures feel a lot like Conan the Barbarian adventures, especially if you are familiar with his time as a thief. Conan spent part of his very early career learning thieving, and of course Fafhrd and Grey Mouser, which is an unavoidable comparison for Gord and Chert. Gygax himself acknowledges that in the column. I don't mean any of that as a criticism. I like all of the things I've just named. Conan, Fafhrd and Grey Mouser, and of course this and D&D. I specifically love Greyhawk. This book is an excellent addition to anybody's Greyhawk library. The other thing I want to say about this is this was published by New Infinities Productions, which was, if I'm not mistaken, part of Tri-G Enterprises, which was Gygax's company after he left TSR. This book was published in 1987, a few years after he was out of TSR, and this was his new company. In an odd split, the first two Gord the Rogue books, Saga of Old City and Artifact of Evil, were published by TSR in the Greyhawk imprint. The next 5 books published in the series, of which Knight Errant is one, are published by Gygax's company and still use some of the Greyhawk elements, the setting of Greyhawk. I found conflicting information as to whether he got the rights to use Greyhawk or just wrote these while things were still in court. I've never really gotten a clean answer I've been satisfied with on that. But he changes a few of the character names because of the legalities involved. So you kind of have to see through it. And if you read in context and you're a Greyhawk fan, none of this is a real problem for you. But this is a lot of fun. This is a very fun short story collection. Also the short story from At Moonset Comes Black Cat from Dragon 100 could easily fit within these pages. And in fact, I read that whenever I read this. I'll take a look at Moonset Comes Black Cat in a future video. So that's really what I've got to say about this particular set of Gord the Rogue. It's nice. It shows the character maturing a little bit. In the early part of the book, he's kind of a carefree, ne'er-do-well adventurer. In the later part of the book, there's a little darker turn, and there's a conspiracy to possibly overthrow the rulers of Greyhawk, which makes this book kind of fun. It goes a little beyond the scope that you expect when you start reading it, but that's okay by me. So that's all I've got today for page 121. If you like what you heard and saw, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.